Welcome to FPL Selection. Today we'll take a look at how the wildcard is shaping up for game week 22, but first a quick look at how we got on in game week 21. So 56 points and another small rise up the ranks. I'm just above 700,000 at the moment. I had clean sheets for Gabriel and Lacroix, with the latter also getting DEFCON. Senesi also hit DEFCON and an assist. Nothing again from midfield, which is quite disappointing really, especially with all the money I've got put into that. Then I had goals from Thiago and Captain Haaland. So some nice momentum over the last few weeks. Just sort of hoping to carry that through now to the wildcard, which we'll get onto shortly. So looking ahead now to game week 22. Wildcard is active. And activated it just after the end of the last game week. As I said in my first draft video last week, I just felt like I had quite a few moves I wanted to make before sort of a few fixture swings coming into game week 24. Or 6 or 7 changes that I wanted to make, and I would only have sort of 4 transfers. So 2 or 3 hits. It just seemed like it made sense just to go now with the wild card, set everything up perfectly for the next sort of 8 weeks, and then be able to bank the 5 transfers. I've already got 2 in the bank anyway. So I just felt like that would just put me in a nice position, a strong team, the squad, well filled out, prepared, and then 5 transfers that I could, swap anything around that needed to, going into sort of the blank and double game weeks later on in the season. So the original draft I made last week, I've only actually got 1 change in this current draft. It's just to bring Chris Richards in for Senesi. Just think the Palace fixtures are a little bit nicer and it's a little bit cheaper as well. So I'd have a couple 0.2 in the million in the bank. And yeah, I think this draft basically centers around having Palmer and Saka, which in an ideal world is what I would like. But it does leave me a little bit cheap in defence. And I think after a little bit more thinking, the double Sunderland defence is only really going to be good for about 3 weeks. And yeah, there are a few okay fixtures after Arsenal and Liverpool in 25 and 26. But I think a few weeks ago I said that I hadn't put enough money into defence and that I probably should be going for a few players from better teams. So I think I'm just going to end up in the same situation again where I'm going to get very few clean sheets. Might do well out of my midfield and attack, but I think it's those sort of, having the 2 Arsenal defenders, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, those kind of teams, just think it's a little bit light and, people could probably gain quite a bit on me just from having some of those. So yeah, at the minute this draft, I've got Richards in there now and it's basically the same as last week, but we'll move on to the second draft at the moment. And I think that's probably what I'm, aiming to go for, sort of 60-40 at the moment. So we'll take a look at that now. So draft 2, I've been working on this one for sort of the last week. I think Saka is probably a little bit overpriced for what he's returning at the moment. He's one of my sort of favourite picks really for FPL for the last few seasons just because he's so consistent. You just get little bits every week. And, in the past his minutes were almost guaranteed if he was fit. So I think the things that I need to accept have changed is that, Arsenal have got a bigger squad now. They can play Madueke for sort of 15-20 minutes. Give Saka the rests that, his injury history, probably shown he's been overplayed a little bit. They've got, a lot of, they're in all the competitions, so they're going to have a lot of games. And especially when they get to some of the easier fixtures, they've got some nice fixtures for over the next sort of 8 to 10 weeks. Potentially he's going to get some rests here and there. So is it worth spending 10 million on a player that's not going to start every game? He's going to come off every sort of, couple of games. He's going to get 60 or 70 minutes, especially in the easier fixtures. I'm just not sure it's going to be worth it. And what I've done is replaced him with ROGERS, who has really good fixtures for basically the rest of the season up until sort of game week 37. And, he's been the talisman for Villa this season. So you're getting someone that's getting 90 minutes every week and, he's getting the majority of the goals for his team rather than Saka. Arsenal sort of sharing the goals around quite a lot this season. And obviously the budget difference there has allowed me to upgrade the defence. So I've got the double Arsenal defence now with Timber. And then I've been able to go for Lacroix instead of Richards, which is a bit more guarantee of DEFCON points, and he's probably, a bit of more of a threat from set pieces. All the other pieces surrounding it are basically the same. I think I've already sort of bottomed out my bench in terms of budget, so yeah, I'm quite happy with all of that. I think at this moment, the only spots up for debate are those two defensive spots in Timber and Lacroix. I think in an ideal world, I would have Munoz and Calafiori if both were fit. I mean, Munoz should be back shortly. I'm hoping to get some sort of update. Hopefully he's going to be available this weekend or next. And if he is close, then I might take the gamble on him. And I've got Alderete, who I'd happily play over the next 3 weeks. And then I could bring Munoz in without having to make a transfer. As Palace's fixtures sort of turn in a couple of weeks' time, although, Sunderland away is decent this week, but I think they've got the likes of Wolves and Burnley coming up over the next 5. So, yeah, it'd be really nice to have Munoz. Obviously, coming back from an injury is a little bit risky. And it's the same story, Calafiori. I would obviously rather have Timber, but the price difference between the two is 0.7. So, yeah, it would allow me Munoz if I did go Calafiori. But with both being injury doubts, I'd then have to play Joe Rodon as well for a few weeks, which obviously is not ideal. So I could potentially just make the transfers in a couple of weeks if I'm, confident they're going to be fit and ready. But yeah, it's just something I'm thinking about at the moment. But either way, I'm certainly going to have that stronger defence with this draft anyway, which obviously the difference between Saka and ROGERS allows. And I just think that'll put me in a better position going forward. Much more potential of clean sheets, obviously, with a double Arsenal. And, I think Palace, hopefully their schedule's going to be a little bit lighter now and might get, a few more clean sheets as they were at the start of the season. And then, obviously, not ideal losing Saka, but I've still got the double Chelsea midfield, which I'm, really want to take the punt on because I think their fixtures are so good for the next sort of 8 weeks. And then, yeah, nothing else has really changed. I'm quite happy with that front line. I'm not going to change that at this point. Fernandes will definitely be in. Rice definitely in. Palmer should be fit for the weekend. A few doubts over, what sort of minutes he's going to get with Chelsea's heavy schedule. But I think he's, Chelsea obviously going to want to qualify for next year's Champions League, so it's really important for them to come in the top 5. So I think he should start the majority of games. And like I said, Sunderland have got good fixtures for a little bit. So, if for some reason he did completely miss out, I have got a decent defender there in Alderete to come in. Obviously, you can't compare the two, but, it's not the end of the world if he does miss sort of 1 or 2 games over the next sort of 8 weeks. Rice, like I said, definitely in. I think he's just so consistent and, being 3 million cheaper than Saka, I just think it makes sense really just to go for the steady Eddie that will, pick up little bits every week, 90 minutes every game. Yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment. And yeah, I say I'm sort of 60-40 on this draft, having no Saka, because I just think it does strengthen my defence a little bit more. The way I'm sort of thinking about it in my head is it's basically ROGERS and Timber versus Saka and Richards. So I think, when you compare those two, I think you're probably going to sway more towards the ROGERS and Timber as a combination. I've got a couple more days to think about it, but yeah, I'd say, yeah, we're looking at 10 places probably already settled, and then it's just a case of how much do I want Saka, which will, determine, where the other pieces are going to be come the deadline on Saturday. For the captaincy this week, it is on Haaland at the moment, but I'm seriously considering going against him this week. I think United is a tricky fixture really because we don't know what we're going to expect from United. Obviously, new manager coming in, we're expecting some different ideas, a bit of positivity. Hopefully the players, will give them a bit of a boost, wanting to get in the team basically for the new manager. So I'm just not sure I can see a huge haul for Haaland, even though he does tend to always score against United. But it is at Old Trafford, and Haaland, Pep did say he was tired the other day, so it hasn't been, he hasn't been crazy good recently. He's just picking up the odd goal here and there. So just no clear standouts at the moment. I think if Palmer was fully fit, Brentford at home would seem like a good gamble. And I had been looking at him, captaining him for a block actually, sort of going for the next 4 or 5 with Palmer, but with his fitness issues, that's a little bit risky. Could look at Gabriel, game against Forest. He has a good chance for a clean sheet, and obviously he's always got potential from set pieces. DEFCON might be an outside shout. And the other ones I was looking at was potentially ROGERS, Everton at home. Everton missing quite a few players in their defence. Might be, a bit of joy there for Villa. I just never really captaining Villa players. I think Emery's always a little bit careful, and it just doesn't really fill me with confidence either. So yeah, I've got Friday and Saturday to figure that one out, as I've sort of been really working on the draft so far over the last week. But yeah, we'll see where we end up come Saturday. But it's on Haaland now, but I'm really considering going against at the moment. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.